Hey everybody, Jordan here from the Minnesota Discovery Center. Welcome back to the 10th annual, second virtual Iron Range Science and Engineering Festival. This year we're proud to be presenting to more than 1,350 Northland students from more than 13 schools across northern Minnesota. But before we get started with these exciting presentations, we'd like to thank these sponsors. This virtual experience is a partnership presentation brought to you by Carnegie Museum of Natural History. Today we'll be looking at bird banding. Why do we band birds, migratory birds specifically, and track that data? Let's find out.
Hi, I'm Annie Lindey. I'm the Bird Banding Program Manager at Powdermill Avian Research Center, which is the environmental field station of Carnegie Museum of Natural History. I've been banding here since roughly 2000, but on and off, so I haven't been here for those whole 21 years. The bird banding station at Powdermill Nature Reserve is the longest continuously run year-round bird banding station on the continent. We're nearing 800,000 bird banding records. Which is pretty high. We're really excited about that. So bird banding is it's a way to just track all sorts of things. We can track populations, we can track migration, we can see where birds are going, where they're coming from, and we can use bird banding to support other research projects. So here at Powdermill we have several things that we do, but primarily we really are in the MODIS wildlife tracking system. So we put these little tags on birds and we see where they go. These receiving stations pick up the signal from the transmitters, and so we can track birds where they go. And we're also involved with avian perception of glass, and so we have a flight tunnel where we fly birds towards two panels of glass. One is a control and one is a treatment. And the treatment is manufactured in a way that the manufacturers think that the birds maybe avoid that panel, and so we're testing that here at Powdermill. When we fly them down the tunnel, there's a net that stops them, so they don't hit the glass, but we know which direction they're flying towards. If they're flying towards the control, then that means that the treatment panel is working. So yeah, in order to band birds, what we do is we open these nets. This one is a closed one. They're about 8 feet tall when they're open. We open them half an hour before sunrise, and we operate for 6 hours each day. And we check these nets every 40 minutes and extract the birds, bring them back to the banding station where we put a little serially number band on the bird's leg. We identify the species, we age and sex the bird, and then we do a series of measurements. So we do wing chord, we check the bird for fat, and then we do a tarsus length, which is part of the bird's foot. And then we weigh the bird and we let it go. Or we send it either to the flight tunnel or maybe some other research project before we let it go. But the whole banding process takes usually less than 30 seconds per bird. So it's quick, and a lot of the birds that we get are recaptures, or they come back. So we know that the banding process isn't really harming them. And especially in the winter when we operate with little traps that we bait with seeds, so the birds hop in, the door closes, and they're free to eat the seeds until we extract them and bring them back to the lab. A lot of the birds come back every single day that we band in the winter, and in particular this past winter we had a bird that was in the trap multiple times a day, almost every day. One day it was in 9 times, which is pretty wild. So we know that the birds are pretty okay with the whole banding process for the most part. All right, so this is a ruby-crowned kinglet in the net, and we have to decide which side of the net the bird flew in first. And so I know it came from the other side, and because this is a swamp, I'm just going to come over the top of the net to extract it. So I want to pull the bird out exactly the same way that it went in. So I'm going to put it in this body grasp, so I'm holding it so that it's safe and it's not flailing. And then I'm going to extract a wing, and then I'm going to rotate the bird a little bit, get the net off the head, off the other wing, and then switch hands. And then the bird sort of just lets go. This one wasn't too tangled. This one's already banded, so we must have caught this one on a different day. This is a a male ruby-crowned kinglet, and it has this little hidden patch of red on its head. And we have special holds that we do that we've practiced and that we know how to keep the birds secure. Okay, so then we put them into a clean cloth bag. And we mark it with a net, the number of the net that it came out of is net 5A. This mesh is so fine that it's really hard to see. And what they do is they come along, if we pretend this is a bird, they're flying along and they hit the net and they drop safely into these little pockets, and the net just holds them in the pockets. And then we come along and we extract them from the nets. And so this song sparrow did just that. He was flying through the brush here, and he hit the net and he dropped right down into the pocket here. And so what I do, and this is something that takes a lot of training, is I get the bird in this body grasp, and I'm going to pull it up and away from the net in following the path that it went into the net. And then I'm going to start to pull the net off of the wings and then the head. And this one's almost extracting himself. Okay, and then the last thing I do is get the net off of the feet. And this one's a recaptured bird, so it already has a band. And so he's holding on a little bit with his feet. So I'm going to put my finger in between those and open the toes, and then just massage the net off of the feet. Here's a fox sparrow. It flew in from this side. So I'm going to just reach in and put it in a body grasp, and then I'm going to pull it up and away from the net. And I'm going to get the net off of this wing and turn the bird away from where I was working. And then looks like the head, maybe the other wing will be better. Switch hands. Get the net off of the head. And they often let go with their feet, but this one isn't, so it did. It's a nice big sparrow, bicolored bill. And these bags are lightweight and breathable, but they're opaque so that the bird isn't looking out, and it's pretty safe and secure in here. It feels relatively secure. All right, these birds are recaptures, which means that they were banded on some other day and recaptured today. I'm gonna narrate or dictate to my recorder what I'm doing here. So this bird came out of net 4D. Okay, so I'm gonna read the band number. It is 2891-43324. And this is a fox sparrow. This is one of the biggest sparrows that we have. I guess it has its name because it's red like a fox. Really, really nice spots here. Very sharp bird. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is try to figure out how old the bird is, and then whether it's a male or a female. And what I'm looking at is, I'm looking at the wing feathers to see if I can tell if there are juvenile feathers there. If there's a mix of juvenile and adult feathers, I know that this bird hatched last year. But if it's all one generation of feathers, then I know that the bird did not hatch last year. It was sometime before last year. I'm going to say after second year. And then we can't tell the sex in fox sparrows at this time of year. We can only tell if it's a male or a female based on breeding condition, and this bird is not in its breeding season. And what I mean by breeding condition is whether the bird has a bare belly, and that would be a female, so they get something that's called a brood patch. And that's how they incubate their eggs. And a male has a swelling of the cloaca, and that's called a cloacal protuberance. And those only happen when the birds are breeding. Okay, so then I do wing length, and this is 82 millimeters. And then I'm going to take a look at the fat. And in order to do that, I need to blow on the bird's belly. Or not the belly, but the furcular area. And so I have this foot pedal operated blower, and I'm going to use it to part the feathers. This bird has no fat, which means that it's still fueling to continue migration. And then I'm going to do a tarsus length. It's 25.0 millimeters, and the tarsus is this part of the bird, and that's essentially part of the foot. Okay, and then the last thing I'm going to do is get a mass.
$31.7.
Yep, 31.7 grams. And then we let the bird go. We have a little special window to release the bird. All right, so here's a song sparrow. A lot of the sparrows that we get here, or just anywhere, are thought of as little brown birds because they are mostly brown. But they really have these intricate patterns, and we can identify them based on, are they streaky, and what do the facial patterns look like. And sometimes sparrows are a little bit harder to see because they skulk in brushy areas rather than sitting up high and singing. But they often will come to bird feeders too, so you may be able to identify a few of these species at your bird feeders, or even out in the woods or field. So song sparrows have some streaking on their breast, and they have this, especially this dark spot right in the middle that we refer to as a tie tack. And they have these extra stripes on the face, so there's a lot of striping on the face. A gray line above the eye, a brown cap, a little bit of a line in the middle of that cap, a brown eye line behind the eye, and a couple of stripes, where like a mustache might be. And they're very, very patterned on the backs too. I don't know if we can get this in some light to look at what that pattern looks like. So it's not just a little brown bird. It's all different kinds of brown. And so song sparrows here in southwestern Pennsylvania are a species that we'll see year-round, but they are migratory. So the same birds that we see in the winter are not the same as the ones that we see during the breeding season. They do migrate, but this is in their range year-round. All right, so here's another sparrow. It looks kind of similar to that song sparrow, but it's a little bit smaller. It's not streaky on the breast. And the color on the head is a little bit different. This is a warmer, almost redder, rufusy color on the head. And the stripe above the eye is more of a pearly gray. So this is a swamp sparrow. Scrubby habitat, but often near water, just like its name would suggest. So how do I know this, right? This comes with a lot of practice to identify these birds. And it really helps to be able to look at them up close. It helps to have a really good pair of binoculars when you're in the field. And it helps to carry a really good field guide with you too. These field guides have illustrations. These are paintings. And they point out different marks that you look for on these birds. So it'll describe different field marks to note, and that's how you separate these species. They have range maps, which really helps you to know what birds are expected in your area. So yeah, using a field guide and binoculars in the field, and then if you get the opportunity to visit a banding station, being able to see these birds up close helps you learn some field marks as well. So yeah, we use bird banding data just to monitor the health of populations, and bird banding really supports these other projects that we can use in real-world conservation efforts. So the glass testing that we do, we're informing manufacturers about this is glass that does deter birds from collisions. We know that collisions are a major cause of bird mortality, especially during migration. So if manufacturers are able to make this glass and put it in buildings, we're going to be able to reduce the number of collisions, and that's a conservation effort. And the same with any sort of tracking. If we know where birds are going, we maybe are able to tell what sort of habitats they're using, and we're going to be able to pinpoint what habitats are most important, or what habitat patches are most important. during the whole bird's life cycle. So not just breeding, not just wintering, but also these stopover habitats that birds use while they're migrating. They have to stop over and refuel before they continue migration. And so if we're able to conserve these most important habitats, that's going to do a lot for bird populations as well. Yeah, so I hope you really enjoyed your time here bird banding with us at Powdermill. If you want to take a look at our website, it's powdermillarc.org. There's all kinds of really cool information about the things that we're doing here and things that we have done with our data. So I hope you get out and enjoy the birds this spring.